podcast by two 30-something dudes whose adult lives and responsibilities haven't eclipsed our zeal for stupid, nerdy shit. From Warhammer 40k to video games to potpourri, I don't know. We're here to love the stuff that you love. If it's your fandom, we're your tandem. Of course, as always, I'm Ben, aka LS Demon, and I'm joined by my brother from another mother, Tom, aka Tommy Bones, aka Bonesaw Miniatures on Instagram.
Hello.
Tom, it's been a long week again, hasn't it?
Yeah, they're just getting longer.
You and I need to make this a thing. Viewers, please help us out here. We really want to stop working. We both have really onerous jobs. We'd much rather talk about this shit and have you could throw tomatoes at us. Honestly, I don't care if I don't have to go into an office.
For a nominal fee.
For a nominal $1 per tomato. That seems reasonable. And I get to keep the tomato, though. But as always, Tom, we get over the long week by chatting with each other. We review the events of the week, usually with some 40K news in there. And we like to have a little beer while we do it. Tom, what are you drinking tonight?
Victory Brewing Golden Monkey, Belgian-style triple ale.
I think I've had that one before. It's pretty good, right?
Yes, very strong.
Well, I applaud your craft brew sense. As always, I went with something a little more mundane. I just stopped by the CVS on the way home. I got a Modelo Especial.
Uh-huh.
Gets the job done.
Happy Memorial Day.
Right. Hey, Tom, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to chat a little bit about the Warhammer Plus streaming service.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, a week or so ago, the Games Workshop announcement came that the shows that they had recently acquired from some of the private animators, including Astartes and Exodite, along with a slew of really cool looking programs, were actually going to be released on a proprietary streaming service, which they've called Warhammer Plus, with more details, including how much it costs and how you access it, coming later in the summer. Unsurprisingly, people had strong opinions. I'm curious, Tom, when you heard that, did you have an immediate reaction?
Yes, I did. I thought about the episode, we talked a little bit before, an earlier episode when Games Workshop announced they were reaching out to these independent content creators and sort of welcoming them into the fold and making their content canon, and and it was really cool. We were super impressed that they were making the effort. And then when they recently announced Warhammer Plus, it just, my mind immediately went to, oh, okay. I see what you were doing.
It's like that thing you see on the internet where the person throws up the sheet and then disappears, and then the cat or dog is like, what the hell just happened?
It's like, I see. You were releasing a service, you needed content at launch. There really wasn't any altruistic motivations behind it. You just wanted cash grab.
Yeah, and I think you're not alone in that feeling. I think people pretty much freaked out. I know on Grimdank on Reddit and a variety of other YouTube sources, people were letting them have it for a few days.
Mm-hmm.
I want to explore it a little bit. One of the things I do for a career is I'm actually a business consultant. So there's some thoughts I have about whether this is a good idea or not from a business perspective. Spoilers, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I need to see the details.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, like, Tom, how did we get to this place where we, as fans, we fucking love Warhammer and everything, but we're so vitriolic against Games Workshop all the time? Why is that?
I don't know. It almost seems like they're trying to alienate most of their fan base.
Yeah.
And I don't get it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Like, to be honest, look, I don't think that they're trying to alienate us.
Then they're just so out of touch that they don't realize they're...
I think that's partly it, but I also just think it's a communication thing.
Mm.
I'll give you a great example. The thing that people always come back to is, why do you keep putting out Space Marine models and not any of the Xenos factions?
Mm-hmm.
And I think Games Workshop could really crush that by just having somebody come out and publish an article or put something on social media that says, hey, we totally hear you. We're working on it. Here's a timeline.
Right.
We're doing Space Marines right now because that's been in plan for XYZ amount of time. And that's the top seller by 2 times, 2x, whatever. It's people buy it. We need the funding.
And, last year was pretty much a wash with COVID. It really slowed things down. I get it.
And they ran out of stock because their supply chain got all messed up because of COVID. So their supply did not meet demand. Games Workshop, if you're listening, I get it. Like, you're blowing up right now. Your stock is worth a ton. You have a core fan base. My number one suggestion to you is you need to work on how you communicate to that fan base and try to incorporate them into the decision making, even if it's just the appearance of that. Acknowledge what people are saying. Hey, yeah, we know you want Xenos models. Here's where it is in our plan. Like, we heard you, we take that in, stay tuned. Here's when it's going to come.
I think there's not so much an issue of them not knowing what the people want, because there've been a number of tongue-in-cheek jokes. I think, like, I can't remember now what it was a video for, but one of the releases.
Primaris Lieutenant?
One of the releases, and on a whiteboard behind them is another Primaris Lieutenant written on the whiteboard. You know exactly what we're talking about. You are listening. You're just ignoring us. Or at least that's how it seems.
And I think it's probably just a concern of like, hey, well, we don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. Or, well, there's some risk involved, so we don't want to tell people. I totally get that, Games Workshop. I think you get a lot of street cred, you get a lot of patience if you just come out and say, hey, let's do a survey and listen to people. Or, hey, we read the boards, like, we know this is what you're thinking about. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get to it quite yet, but we're working on it. If you just said, like, if you told Tom, hey, we know you want a Demon Primarch Fulgrim model, we hear you, it's on the list of things we're going to try to get to, how good would that make you feel?
At least I would know it was in the works. The anticipation and just constantly being disappointed from not knowing, I think, is the worst part. If I know there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I'm more likely to spend more money on other things.
I agree with you. Or to save up, or to be like, okay, well, I know it's coming down the pike. I'm not going to go invest in something else because, as a hobbyist, we both have limited budgets, right? So I think number one is communication. I think that's the biggest problem they have.
I did pre-order Dexessa.
What is Dexessa?
The Talon of Slanesh.
Oh, that awesome thing. And it could be like two different models?
Yeah. Dexessa or what's the other one? Sinessa, the voice of Slanesh.
So potato.
Yeah.
Those models do look sick.
Yeah. That's never been a complaint. The GWs, their sculpts and the quality of the models are just amazing. Phenomenal.
And we love what you guys are doing. Now, I think the other complaint that people chiefly have, and this is where we'll get into the Warhammer stream, is there's a awareness that you have this core group of customers, us like hardcore gamers, and that we're going to pay for whatever you put out. Mm-hmm. You're the drug dealer. The drug is 30K or fantasy, well, 40K anyway. We're going to buy it, right? If you put out a streaming service, I'm going to buy it. If you put out a codex and then 2 months later there's some kind of expansion and I have to get it, I may buy it, but at some point this attempt to extract as much capital as possible from that core group of people, you're going to tap it out. And I know
people blood from a stone.
Absolutely. We're really frustrated. The whole buy a codex, you should be able to get everything you need for that army in that codex. And if you put something out in an expansion, here's a great idea. Just say, hey, if you get the app and you have the codex, we'll give you access to everything else related to that army.
We updated the codex in the app to include all the FAQs and erratas.
And then there's a reason to have the app.
Right.
It's hey, we know the app costs money, but at least we're going to keep it updated every month with all the FAQs. So you don't need to buy the expansion to play your favorite army. Because the app is crap.
But if you build an army and submit it, you could win that army.
Yeah, okay. Show me the winners. But that's the second thing is, look, you have this core group of people. You've been using them successfully to continue to grow exponentially. You're going to tap out that market. Mm-hmm. And the things that you're doing now to tap out that market increasingly feel like they're not a partnership, they're a predation. Mm-hmm. You are preying on our love of your product and not giving us enough back for the money we're investing in it, and you're going to alienate those people. So my suggestion, this can get into the Warhammer Plus, start expanding the market. Stop trying to just, cook that core group of people. Start getting money from other people.
Right.
And that brings us to Warhammer Plus, Tom. Have you looked at the lineup, by the way?
Yeah. All the stuff that they had, all the animation they had mentioned they were bringing in, the Exodite, and Astartes, and all that good stuff.
It looks fucking tight. Straight up, I want to watch this stuff. Hammer and Bolter, that's the one where it's it's a different story each week and a different animation style. Awesome. Yeah. Can't wait. Angels of Death is Imperials versus Genestealer cults. Looks pretty good. Yeah. So there's some creativity there. I'm excited about Exodite and Astartes too. All good stuff.
Interrogator.
I assume that's probably about something Inquisition related.
It's a show about a man who's looking to avenge his dead boss, an Imperial Inquisitor.
Well, that's compelling. But it's good shit.
Yeah.
I was so excited. We did that episode. We're oh, this is great. Oh, awesome. We're expanding the universe. I'm thinking good, get a show on Adult Swim. Put a show on Netflix. because then you're starting to expand out into a different crowd, and you're gonna grow the pie that is the market instead of shrinking the pie by continuing to just only put everything behind a paywall.
And I'm so disappointed in myself that I didn't immediately see it for what it was. I think I have to forfeit my Cynicism Association membership card.
When you said cynicism, by the way, I thought you were talking about one of those two Slanesh demons. It's like, wait, isn't that one of the two?
That's her name now.
So here's my point on this. If you look at a different company, which was in kind of a similar situation, Marvel circa 2000, the 90s were not kind to Marvel or to comics in general. And like prior to that, like there were some video games, like I'm sure you and I played, like, Super Nintendo games. There were toys, some cartoons, but like the bulk, maybe if not a bulk, a large percentage of their income was derived from their core product, which was comics. And in like the 80s and before, huge business, and starting in the 90s, it started to tail off. So they had a kind of turning point where in the late 90s, early 2000s, they started selling off like franchises like Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, all that stuff, to try to gain some money back. And what we saw was that really freaking good movies that were accessible to everyone suddenly expanded out of Marvel, so that it went from something that was kind of fun for some people and like had a really hardcore core group of people to just mainstream. Yeah. Like today, everyone has seen a Marvel movie.
I remember a couple of days ago, there was, on Facebook, you can see memories of things you've posted from that day in history. And one of my posts was, hey, remember back in the day when liking comic books made you a nerd? Like, it just became such a thing. Everyone was going and watching these summer blockbuster superhero movies.
Yeah, like I remember as a kid, like only the nerds like would wear superhero shit, or like liking superheroes meant you were a geek or you were gonna get beat up. And now, if you don't, you're the weird one. Now, I'm not advocating bullying, to be clear. But what I'm saying is there was a complete shift, and suddenly it's mainstream. And Games Workshop, you have an opportunity here where your product is poised, your IP is poised to become something that is more than just the principal playground of these diehard people like Tom and I.
The stories are there. There's so much amazing content that so many great stories can be told.
Absolutely. If you can get one of these shows and just release it for free, you're going to, not only does that add street cred, just like have it on Adult Swim, make a partnership with Hulu, just get it on there. Suddenly people who would never look at this are like, oh, this is cool. And it gets so much just credibility as a real medium and IP. But to put it behind a paywall means now you're going to get money in the short term from that core group of fans that's willing to pay some amount of money. But in the long term, you lost this tremendous opportunity to release all this stuff and get so many more people into it.
Exactly. It's preaching to the choir. No one who's never heard of Warhammer is going to pay for this service. But if you've got a couple of shows on Hulu, the sci-fi fan who's never heard of Warhammer might, check it out and say, hey, this is really cool. Now you've got yourself a new customer who's going to spend thousands, of dollars on an army. It just seems to make better sense.
And those people who like it from the sidelines, they're probably never going to pay thousands of dollars for an army, but they'd probably buy an action figure or a comic book. I just bought the Marnius Colgar. Marnius Colgar. The comic book, it looks great. Yeah, the Colgate. Marina Colgate comic book, which looks delicious and good. But like you can get those people to buy, apparel, get them to buy a T-shirt. Of like it becomes a meme. Suddenly it's merchandising potential. You can get one person to pay $2,000 or 5,000 people to pay $10. Where are you getting more money, guys? It's
an easy way to get new people into the hobby.
Yeah, and even if they don't, maybe they'll buy the games, Total War Warhammer is doing awesome in terms of, like, preaching for this stuff. Too bad we can't get a good 40K game.
Unless they want to play Total War or Dawn of War, on GOG.
Which I did love. I loved the first couple Dawn of Wars. And on GOG, yeah, that's the only place. I think it's actually it's on Steam, too. I think you can buy it on Steam. Okay. But there's the point. So that's our rant. Like Games Workshop, you got a couple opportunities here. One is you need to communicate better with your core fans, because right now it feels like you're ignoring everybody. And I don't think you are. I just don't think, it's like in a relationship. If you don't say I love you, the other person might not assume it, right? You gotta vocalize it. Hey guys, we're hearing you. Here's the things that we're working on. Here's a timeline. Even say, keep in mind, our timeline could get completely screwed up because we're dealing with all these resources. We're trying to grow as a company, but this is the best we can do. Bring us on board as your partners instead of the people that you're trying to bilk money from. Number two, change the relationship with us from one where you're trying to extract as much capital as possible to one where you're viewing us as partners who are going to be long-term invested in the company, and start making it worth our while to buy these incremental products that you're trying to sell us for, or you're going to alienate us. And three, don't just think about us as your future. You should always have us at the center, but also think about how do we expand this to different and new audiences. And in that vein, don't be penny wise and pound foolish.
Well said.
All right, so that was the serious part of the show. Now, of course, Tom, you and I got excited because with a new Warhammer streaming service, that means they're going to need more show ideas.
Of course.
So we came up with some potential candidates. Warning: this is where stuff gets fucking dumb and silly from now on.
Games Workshop, make these shows.
Make these shows. All right, Tom, I think you came up with 2 pilots. I came up with 3.
Yeah.
Is there any, like, before we dive in, is there anything you want to, like, a tee up or some kind of inspiration that you were drawing from?
No, I was just thinking about shows that I like and how, I guess much like the video game episode, you know, these are games that I like and how can they be ported to the universe of 40K.
Mine was that, and then also what puns could I get into the titles?
Ooh, that too.
So, all right, on that note, Tom, so there's a couple cool things going on in the Warhammer Plus. So we got some Sigmar. We got some there's a whole bunch of stuff with Astartes.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of this is conflict-centered, although Interrogator seems like it could be a cool film noir or mystery. So that, you know, there's a little bit different. But I'm saying let's go a completely different genre. Mm-hmm. And that's why I came up with Cooking with Corpse Starch.
Son of a bitch.
Is that one of yours too?
The Great Corpse-Starch Bake-Off.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll just mine. I didn't have a whole lot other than I was thinking like you could get a Gordon Ramsay-esque, like maybe like a political officer or the commissar, who every episode reminds people that it's their, you know, graven duty to honor every ration that they get and that they should be thrilled to even get corpse starch. And then that could lead into something where, you know, different people try recipes. The difference here is it is a competing show. The person with the worst recipe gets executed for dishonoring the gifts that the Emperor provides.
I love it.
What angle did you take on this one?
See, I didn't really go so far with it. The Great British Baking Show, but with corpse starch.
Do we know what corpse starch? I feel like it's like an energy bar. Like, do we have any other details about what it is or what it tastes like?
I assumed it would be like a powdered form. You know, I don't know if that's accurate. In my head, I know, like bone dust.
Yeah, I wasn't. Have you ever seen the Snowpiercer?
The movie or the show?
I've only seen the movie. Yeah. But you know, they eat the bars that are made out of like bugs, basically. Mm-hmm. I read about corpse starch right about when I saw that, so for some reason that's what stuck in my mind. It's like a bar of protein or something.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm not sure.
All right, so some kind of corpse starch scent, which I think would be, you can make it a little tongue-in-cheek, and maybe you could have some kind of like nested show about it, but whatever.
Because they have the judges, then the quirky hosts that, you know, that make jokes, you know, get a bunch of, you know, imperial citizens in a tent baking.
All right, you ready for number 2?
Yeah.
Man versus warp.
Ooh.
So we know man versus food and man versus wild. I have to actually give Gabrielle credit for this. So the idea here is you get a group of people, and each one has to go through a set of trials, with the final one being they're going to be in a compartment of a ship which is not protected by a Keller field. And whoever survives the longest wins. Unfortunately, they're probably so tainted by the experience that they have to be liquefied.
It's like a reality competition series. Like
exactly.
Fear factor.
Exactly.
I love it.
Other thoughts on like what you could do with it? I mean, I didn't really get that far on this one, but I thought it's something where people are exposed to the unprotected warp would be entertaining television at the least.
Yeah, watch them be torn apart by demons.
Yeah, absolutely. In horrific ways, I'm sure. All right, what do you got as your number 2?
So my other one, I thought of crime procedural.
Ooh.
In the grimdark Necromunda justice system, the enforcers that uphold Lord Helmar's word of law are known as the Adeptus Arbites. These are their stories.
Dun dun.
Law and Order Necromunda.
Would Jerry Orbach have some hand in it?
Yeah, of course.
Wait, that's the guy who runs that show, right?
Dick Wolf.
Oh no, Jerry Orbach was the actor. I'm thinking
Yeah.
of Dick Wolf. I mean, Jerry Orbach. Wow, he's been dead for almost 20 years.
Really?
2004. That's crazy.
Huh.
All right, R.I.P. Jerry Orbach. You were taken from us too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Only 69 at the time. But yeah, Dick Wolf would be involved. So do you so it's basically kind of like Law and Order, where you have each kind of part of the justice system interacting with each other.
Yeah, well, it's mostly enforcers, the way I saw it, and they just they have to put up with ganger shenanigans, Eschers and Delac, but super violent because they don't give a shit.
That would be pretty tight. I would totally watch that. I like it. So what is it called again? Law and Order Necromunda?
Yeah, I guess I didn't really have a title. It's just where my mind went.
All right. Well, my next one that I came on, and then a couple came to mind as we were talking, so I'll riff a little bit. I had Survivor Astartes. So we're going to follow the Astartes aspirants. I also called it like Recruit Astartes or Who Will Be the Astartes, something like that. But it's just a Survivor-esque or reality show-esque, a la like the Greatest Race, where you start with some number of youths attempting to pledge themselves to an Astartes chapter, only to be slowly whittled away until only a few remain, and what remains of their psyche gets transformed into a transhuman.
Nice.
So a little bit like today's reality shows. I think the Great Race was the one I was just talking about, or Survivor, or like even Boot Camp back in the day, except that it's about children who die over time to try to become a superhuman, because it's the grim dark and it's a very sad reality.
Right. I did think of something similar, but it was the opposite, because I had just read Spear of the Emperor. And their home planet, where they recruit the Emperor Spears, where they get replacement ranks, the civilian population. It's not a great honor for them, like as it is in the rest of the Imperium. They the barbarian people sort of revere the Space Marines as ghosts, to be feared and mourned, because their children go off to become Space Marines, and then they become a totally different person, and they never see their loved one again. So it's like they don't want to be Space Marines, right?
Which they shouldn't, because it's horrible.
Yeah, I think that was a cool take. So the losers get drafted, and they become Space Marines, and the winner gets to live with his family.
That's an interesting one too. I was also trying to think of like what would be the right chapter, and I mean, if it becomes really different if it's like Salamanders versus Blood Angels versus like Ultramarines,
right?
Because the Salamanders, you still have connections with your family after you become an Astartes,
right?
But I think that has some. Maybe each season is a different chapter. Mm-hmm. A couple others I thought of that you and I have talked about. I didn't write these down, but I know we had chatted about them at one point. Serfs. So it's kind of like Friends, like it would be the same logo, but it's about 4, maybe 5, 20s and 30s chapter serfs working on a Space Marine battle barge. Yeah. You could watch them, get into all kinds of sitcom-esque hijinks like, this week Rossius forgot to fully polish Captain Lamartie's armor and there was a blood spatter. Or you can watch as they hang out in a hab block, which is far too large given their income and importance in the chapter.
I like it.
The only thing is there probably wouldn't be a hairstyle, because I'm pretty sure, there's no like Rachel hairstyle, because they all have their heads shaved each week.
Right. Yeah.
By the way, I do not like the show Friends.
I was trying to do a sitcom, but it was failing me. The best I could come up with was a space wolf and, like a salamander. You're trying to pit two like opposite type personalities together and watch the hijinks.
Like a buddy cop movie?
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool. They have a show listed on Warhammer Plus that's called High Lords, and I didn't see any more information about it, but I assume it's probably about like political intrigue on Terra. I do think maybe you could do something kind of like Extras, but it's like, because there are the high families in Terra, the big houses, and I'm sure they need entertainment, so there's probably some kind of like theater scene, and you could talk about that behind the scenes. That would be interesting. All right. Any other last ideas for, like, we could just riff here if anything comes to mind.
Ooh, I would actually like to see the Fall of the Eldar.
That's actually a legit cool one, because you're right. Like, we've got the Horus Heresy. Why not the Fall of the Eldar?
Or even just, what is the play that the Harlequins put on?
Yeah, that would be a tight animation.
I would like to see their performance from start to finish.
I also think there could be like a sitcom with Necrons. Because, like, by the way, I think you and I have talked before, the whole retcon where now Necrons have a, like, personality and they're kind of quirky. I think it's hilarious. I like it a lot. So something with Trazyn and some of the other ones, and it's like Game of Thrones, but, like, it's a little bit like sitcom-y, I would watch that.
Yeah. Trazen has infinite potential just in himself.
Yeah, tracing the infinite potential.
Get it?
Was that a pun? Okay. Orcs.
Oh, yeah, orcs write themselves.
I mean, every week is a different get-rich-quick scheme for one of the orc war bosses.
Yeah.
And he learns a lesson every week. It's like, oh, the more you know, but it's always Daka or Crumpin.
And there's an orc that's credited every week, but it's not actually on the show, but it's because he's purple and you can't see him.
So there's infinite potential here. I do hope they explore some humorous stuff. Unfortunately, you'll notice text-to-speech was not among the shows picked up because I think Warhammer takes itself pretty seriously. But I think something a little satirical would be pretty fun. And Games Workshop, you know where to come if you need more ideas.
My phone number is
1-800-BONESAW.
Which is a reference to early 90s Marvel that we were talking about.
That's right. That was Macho Man's handle when he was a pro wrestler on the first Spider-Man movie, right?
Yeah.
Bonesaw.
I got you for 3 minutes.
Oh, is that you, Macho Man? You're back from the dead. Oh, it's your ghost is on our show.
Oh, yeah.
How are those Slim Jims treating you in the afterlife?
I'm the heavyweight champion of heaven, brother.
Wow, I mean, what about like Andre? He's pretty heavy.
I beat him in a steel cage last week.
That's actually a scary good impression. We should add that to the Christopher Walken George Takei.
Oh, Christopher Walken was god awful.
I liked it. All right. Well, anyway, as always, guys, like and subscribe. Mash the button. You can shoot us. You know what? Get at Tom's Instagram. Apparently, we have a Twitter I set up that I forgot about. Oh, yeah? So I might start getting active on that. So if you at 40 Crate Podcast, you can send us some notes. But we'd love to hear from you. Really, at the end of the day, we do this because we love to talk about this and stay in touch. But we'd love to help you guys in any way we can with your entertainment needs in this soon-to-be no longer quarantine world. But with that, goodbye, good night.
Suck it.
When in doubt, punch it out.
You better lick it before you stick it.
Oh, what is that one? Is that a stamp? Alright, scruff from brush, not the What happens?
Transmitido en español en SAP.
I'm cynicism. It's like you're combining cynicism with enema. I shouldn't have said that while you were taking a drink. I think you almost just didn't you? That's a first. That's the first time we've said enema on this show.
Put in ringing bells and sirens.
Yeah, I'll do a little sound effect.